Good morning, afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nemeka Onyeka Odiariri. The more you try to dimension and dissect the problems in Nigeria, the more you see huge opportunities that are not being exploited to help end the decadence, the poverty level, the unemployment level, and loads of distortions in our economy. I was just taking a cursory look at the contribution of sectors by sectors to the productivity in goods and services in Nigeria, and it struck me that the highest contributor, if you look at the NBS statistics on the GDP growth of Nigeria, second quarter ended June 30th, 2025, you will see clearly that the highest contributor to our GDP growth, which has actually grown fastest over the last 4 years at 4%, is agriculture. Agriculture is doing almost about 18%, followed by trade and commerce, which is about 17.2%. Interestingly, oil and gas contributed only about 4%, and the banking sector, the financial services sector, both banking, insurance, and the rest of them contributed only about 2.8% to the GDP growth. And now, interestingly, real estate construction is about 5%. Now, let's look at the two key sectors that are major contributors to the GDP growth of Nigeria, the productivity in Nigeria, agric, trade and commerce. And I took our time to look at the banking sector, the percentage of risk assets of banks, loans created by banks, and the percentage allocations to some of these sectors. Agric sector, the banking industry allocated only 2.5% of their total credit to the private sector, to the agric sector, which is the biggest contributor to real sector growth in Nigeria. They allocated 16% of their total risk assets to trade and commerce. Of course, that one is easy for them. It's one of the easiest ways they be stealing from customers, opening letters of credit, bringing in goods into Nigeria, over invoicing and all the rest of them. All the criminality banks are, most of the banks perpetrate against customers are on trade transactions. If 90% of big trade customers of banks could actually sit down and hire forensic investigators and accountants and auditors to comb through their books, most of the trillions of naira profits celebrated by the banks over the last 6 years will be rolled back. In fact, most of them will have negative shareholders fund. But unfortunately, Bibles talked about my people perishing for lack of knowledge. Most of the big customers that deal with these banks do not really understand the kind of games these banks do. Financial intermediation, the role of banks all over the world is to bring together the surplus economic unit together with the deficit economic units, and then they will make their spread. That is the role of banks. Banks are there to bring together those that have money and those that don't have money, and then the banks will take their spread. I remember 2009, 2010, I traveled to the US to do a program at Harvard Kennedy School of Government. And in my stay there, I opened an account with JP Morgan Chase. And the account had a feature that if you don't transact and have some certain level of turnovers every month, they will debit some kind of penalties on your account. Because while I was in the US, I was using the accounts, and so there was no need for them to debit me or whatever. But when I left the US and came to Nigeria, I clearly saw that for the first 3 months, I was seeing some debit of $6, $12 in my account. I didn't even know that the account was programmed that way. But I was so excited when one of the account officers at JP Morgan Chase, I think it was, we opened the account at Cleveland, Ohio, called me. A Yoruba lady one came in who worked there and told me, we noticed that there have been no transaction on this account. Are you still in the US? I said, no, I've traveled out of the US. I'm back to Nigeria. He said, okay, this account or this product is this and that and that. Since you're no longer in the US, it will be good for you to convert to this product, because as long as you don't do turnover on the account, certain amount of money or certain transactions will be debiting you. That was how they switched the product to what suits me. Of course, I had to close the account since I was no longer lived in the US. But if it was in Nigeria, Nigerian banks, they would deliberately ignore the fact that I was no longer in the system, and they will clear all the monies in my account and even throw it into debit. That is the culture of impunity, the culture of criminality, the culture of irresponsibility that we have seen. Without that, it's my constituency. I'm a banker, so don't take it as if maybe, oh, this is maybe one engineer or one person trying to rail down on this particular sector. It's a sector I've spent over 2 decades and a half in. It's a sector I'm still in. I run an investment bank as the MD CEO. I represent some of the biggest boutique investment banks in Sub-Saharan Africa, from Europe to America to Asia. So it's an industry that I've worked in and participated in raising over $3 billion over the last 20 years. So it's not something that I take for granted. It's one industry I know will play key roles if we are to attain a $1 trillion economy, as Mr. President have enunciated. But we are not doing nothing to actually support the real sector growth all over the world. Banks' growth rate or banks' growth trajectory tallies with the growth of the economy. If the real sector is growing in any economy, the banks grow. If Nigeria is the other way around, banks are growing, declaring trillions of naira profit, while the real sector is tanking down because of what we are talking about here. So I'm not the kind of person that laments. We are trying to fill that gap. And that is why I took our time to look at, even all over the world, in other clients. I looked at the kind of the Nigerian banking structure, the Nigerian banking system, the commercial banking system, the way they are structured. They are not tailored to support the real sector. They are not tailored to support real estate investments. They are not tailored to support any honest entrepreneurship that is long tenured. They are mostly interested in how they can just fleece customers who do trade transactions and all manner of games. So we are trying to create, we are setting up a finance and a bank. We are coming up with a bank that will fill the gap. Look around the world. In fact, I was doing a study of different bouquet of finance services. I discovered that the cooperative system, in fact, last year alone did over $2.7 trillion. The turnover of the top 300 cooperative banks and the cooperative financial services providers did almost about $2.7 trillion. In fact, the biggest cooperative bank, the credit, the French group, Grupo Credit, Agrocole Credit, which was started by farmers today. Last year did over $98 billion turnover, which is 6 times bigger than the budget of the federal government of Nigeria in 1 year. And the system is very simple. It is the cooperative banking system runs with member ownership, democratic governance, service-oriented mission, localization, mobilizing funds. See, what we are trying to do now, we are setting up a bank, special bank, that is non-interest, is going to be interest-free, profit sharing, and all those stuff. See, let me tell you, like I said, there's no way banks will collect deposits of 100 million naira at 8%. And when you want to go and borrow from the same bank, they will be lending you at 35%. When you ask them, they'll tell you, CBN rate is 27%. If the CBN rate is 27%, which is risk rate, why are you collecting customers' deposit at 7% and lending at 35%? Why not collect customers' deposits within near that threshold? Banks are supposed to make a band, bringing together. You're not supposed to be too much, siphoning the system and all that. Most banks in Nigeria, what they do is mostly money laundering, siphoning, FX, wahala, and all, manipulation. All that's what they do. Nothing more. Helping political bandits to loot money and all rare of nonsense, round tripping. That's what they do. Most of them are trying to see how they can fleece customers. We are coming up with something unique, something very, very unique towards that cooperative arrangement. That is why when you want to go to borrow, they will tell you to give them properties in Maitama, properties in Ikoyi. If you have properties in Owerri, that is even more valuable than your properties in Bayala, they will not give you credit based on that properties. There are some selected areas they want you to own properties before they use that as a collateral for you, because most of them will, of course, always want to frustrate you in such a way that you will default and they will take over that property. Go and fact check this, I'm telling you. If you give them properties from Egbema to Omogoma to Owerri to Okigwe to Alu, they won't take it. Unless they go, even if you have that property is valued at 10 billion, because they know what they are trying to do. So we are coming up with a unique financial services offering that is going to take up very, very soon. See, it's targeted towards some segments of the market, the agri sector, the trade and commerce sector. We are going to work with them, those key players, from Aspamda to Idumota to the Farmers Cooperative. We are going to get them to organize themselves and put themselves in cooperatives. They are going to be part owners of these banks in a very real sense of it, in such a way that they will contribute funds put their deposit, borrow from those deposits. The bank is supposed to just make a small margin that will enable them to remain afloat and take care of shareholders. The banks are not supposed to fleece customers. Banks are supposed to be the engine room that drives and catalyzes real sector growth, economic growth, and empowerment of the people. And that is what we want to do. In the system we are going through, we're not going to ask you to bring your mother and your father and your houses like the current banking system is doing. You're going to work in a way that is going to be counter-guarantee. Members of cooperatives will counter-guarantee each other, and that they will contribute, they will lend. Those who put funds in the bank, we have a certain threshold of share of profit of businesses that they will take. The operators of the bank, which we are going to drive, we have a marginal income or revenue to ensure operation and some little tips for the shareholders. Then those on the borrowing side will borrow without having to crack their heads. All we just need to make sure that the KYCs are done, risk mitigated in such a way that we do not have big bad loan portfolios. Just keep tuned. We are coming with something very, very big. We're going to start with about 100 billion. It's going to capitalize with about 100 billion naira, and we look at a bank that within the next 5 years will hit over 50 trillion naira in deposit. Look at the likes of the other tech-driven financial services companies. What they just do is just people put deposit, take deposit, put deposit. They are not lending. There is no way economy can grow without savings and lending. Savings must happen for lending to happen. If there are savings without lending, economy cannot grow. If lending is restricted, and without affecting the key core sectors of the economy that drives and catalyzes economic growth, and it's not happening in those sectors, economy cannot grow. And that is what we are bringing: solution-driven provisioning services that will make sure that our economy grows. Those within the lower segment of the economic pyramid are financially included, and we have a robust financial services product and services that helps the government to achieve their $1 trillion economic growth dream in the next 2 years. Thank you, and keep and keep following and sharing. I am Nemekonye Kobere. You can reach me on 0813-444-1140, 0813-444-1140. WhatsApp 090909000989 if you want to be part of what we're doing now. God bless you. Keep sharing.